everybody, and welcome to the Tone Dome, episode number 11. Today, I'm joined by Norman Bolter. Norman Bolter is a trombonist, a conductor, a composer, a teacher, and he teaches all over Boston and one of my favorite teachers at the New England Conservatory. Hello, Mr. Bolter. How are you?
I'm good, Sam. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. Thank you so much for coming on the Tone Dome.
Absolutely.
So every time the Tone Dome gets started, I've written a Mad Lib, but you have to fill it out, so you're the author. So a Mad Lib is basically like, I'm going to ask, for example, the first thing I'll ask is just for an adjective, and then you give me an adjective, and then it's about 12 or 13 of them, and then I'll read the story back to you, and we'll both be warmed up at that point to get into it.
All right, I'm into warming up.
All right. Me too. All brass players are into warming up. Musicians in general, right? That's the whole point. So the first thing is an adjective. Do you have an adjective for us, Mr. Bolter?
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Oh my God. Okay. Making me write so much, Mr. Bolter.
You ever heard of that word before?
I have. If you know the sound of it, it's really quite atrocious.
All right. Wow. So people are still watching Mary Poppins.
All right. Great. Your favorite pop star now?
My favorite pop star?
Any pop star. It doesn't have to be your favorite, I guess.
Like pop means recent history, right?
Sure. No, popular in your mind.
The Beatles?
The Beatles. There we go. Great choice. And a piano piece.
Well, I love so many piano pieces. Wow. Beethoven Moonlight Sonata.
Okay. I just played that last night. I was tinkering around on the piano. Great. I love that piece. Okay, a verb ending in ed.
Roasted.
Roasted. A verb ending in ing.
Striking.
You're good at this. You're quick. I like it. All right. A composer's name.
A composer's name.
Don't make me take back the quick comment.
Let me see the composer's name. Wolfgang?
Wolfgang. I like it. Perfect. Your favorite Bruckner symphony.
Seven.
And a well-known trombonist.
Besides me?
It could be you, but probably besides you, yeah.
Michel Biquet.
Okay. A great pick. And an important body part.
Elbow.
An adjective.
What's that?
You already did this.
What's an adjective? Wow.
Well, you said supercalifragilisticexpialidocious last time, so.
Oh, yeah. Wonderful.
Wonderful. A smaller part of that important body part that you named earlier, so the elbow.
Pineal gland.
Okay. A part of a cell.
The nucleus.
Nice. A negative adjective.
Depressed.
A mythical creature.
Unicorn.
Yeah. Here's one. Favorite word for fecal matter.
Favorite word. I think it's fecal.
Your favorite word is fecal?
There's so many.
There's so many, right?
There really are. I mean, do they have to be known or they can be,
Make it up. Yeah. They don't have to be known. Mm-mm.
Stench.
Stinge? Can you spell it?
Stench.
Stench. Okay.
You said it really well. You have to get that ch at the end.
Stench. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
You can feel it then.
And an adjective to describe something gross.
Wait, you're really trying to elevate this whole thing, huh?
I am.
Let's see. An adjective to
This is the last one, by the way, so.
Oh, the adjective to describe something gross. Oily.
Oily. Okay, great. So we're done. So now I'll read it to you. So I'll preface it with this. I kind of write these Mad Libs based on something that reminds me of you as a person, an individual, and things that you've said. And there was a lot of talk about poop, but that's nothing to do with it. Okay, that's just part of the story.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll read it and
poop there. Right.
So this one's entitled On the Farm. Okay. A lone musician stands barefoot in the soft grass, eyes fixed far into the distant trees. He wields his supercalifragilisticexpialidocious trombone before his face, a glint in his eye. He calls out a greeting to the trees with a firm performance of the Beatles' Moonlight Sonata. The trees roasted with delight, the vibrations in the air overwhelming with striking oneness. The musician plays now to a familiar tree he named Wolfgang when he began communicating with them 7 years ago. Michel Bouquet, another tree, interrupts the brief performance, stopping the musician mid-phrase. We demand what is played to originate from the soul of your elbow. The musician gathers himself and plays again with his attention on the wonderful energy flowing from said body part. He plays the same song as before, but let the pineal gland lead the way. This sent the musician's consciousness soaring through the trees, tickling the nucleus of all surrounding life. That is, until there was another interruption from Unicorn, another tree. He said, "That song smelleth like the depressed cow patty you're stepping in right now." Little did the musician know of his more literal oneness with the cow dropping, but Michel Bouquet knew and used it to prank his tree brothers and sisters. The musician then dislodged his foot from the heaping pile of cow stench, amazed at his lack of self-awareness. A smile appeared on his face, however, as he realized he had lost himself completely in the trees with his music. His smile widened even further as he thought, who knew consciousness could smell darn oily? The end.
Wow. Well, bravo.
No, bravo to you. You're the author, the composer of that wonderful.
No, wait a minute. I couldn't have been the author.
You couldn't have been the author.
Right? Because didn't you write all that other stuff and I interjected a few words?
I did.
So
but I think your words were very important, though, to the story, right. The feeling and the expression of the story, you know?
Right, but it was a joint endeavor, right?
It was. Okay, a collaboration of sorts.
It's a collaboration of sorts.
Yes.
With someone who knew things and someone who didn't know things.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So you get the known and the unknown mixing together. So there was a little duet there going on.
I like that.
You know, so I think in certain ways, the words that you asked me kind of added a certain pitch. Now,
Yes.
see, did it add a certain rhythm, a certain pitch, or a different timbre?
Oh, I'm going with timbre on this one.
So me too.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. It added to timbre. Some of it actually, the pineal gland and the nucleus, they really lined up great.
Yeah, I like that.
Stench, you said very well.
I remembered the ch. I needed the ch.
You did. So bravo for setting the framework up where I just happened to drop these random little gargoyles. Stitches.
Well, enough of that now. We got to clear the ways for this. So I would like to get to know you better, Mr. Bolter. I mean, you've told me about your kind of life growing up, and that's kind of where that story comes from a little bit. I
thought so.
So can you tell us a little bit about growing up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and was it a rural situation, urban situation, and kind of how you found the trombone in all of that?
Oh, I can.
Great.
Well, I was born in Minneapolis, and I wanted to play the trombone when I was, I guess the age was around 4.
Okay.
And no one knew why. My parents aren't musicians. And my mother, very young parents I had. So my mother thought, oh, okay. So she called the school up and said, my son wants to play trombone.
At the age of 4.
And the trombone, and see, I saw it. People who are more in the baby boomer age will know a show called Captain Kangaroo.
Okay.
I know, that's like,
I don't know. Yeah,
look like a deer in the headlights.
Not familiar.
Well, anyway, there was a character on there that was named Mr. Green Jeans.
Okay.
And he played trombone. And as soon as I saw it, I went, I want that.
Wow.
And so my mom said, oh, well, let's call the school. And the school said, well, we need trombones. So great. How old is he? And she said, he'll be 5 in January. And I guess what happened was they went, oh, see you in 5 years, basically, because there's, in that particular school system, they didn't start students playing instruments until they were in 5th grade.
Okay.
So for me, that would have been age 10.
Right.
But my parents got divorced, and we moved to St. Paul. And that school system, you could start playing at 9. And that's when they got divorced, when I was 9.
Oh.
Well, the timing of that could not have been better.
Really?
Oh yeah, because I'm not saying that's their divorce. What great timing! I'm not sure when there is a great. Well, that's another big subject, divorce. but this was, for me, it couldn't have been better timing in light of that situation, because I'm a pretty energetic person, always could occupy myself with looking up in the sky. And I knew at a very young age, we were not the only civilization in the universe.
There's too much out there. Look at this.
Was just there, exactly. There you go. You're wearing it.
That's right.
Because I just knew, and I'd have these feelings. I would lay like this on the lawn and look up at the sky. And because of the way I was laying, all I could see was sky. And I just, when you get like that, all you are with is that blue and those clouds coming by at that speed, that clouds, even though they could be going fairly quickly, they look like that as they go by. You know, really just and that's even fast. It's even subtler. So everything slows down and it gets, in a sense, meditative.
Yeah.
And I was totally caught into it. And I could feel, wow, I'm not on the ground anymore. I felt that. Now, I'm not saying I'm sure I still was, okay? But because I got so immersed,
Right.
that the power of connection, something very deep caught me with that. So, I don't know how I totally drifted, not just thinking about the sky. I have a strong connection to it.
Yeah.
That
What was there a lot of or no light pollution where you were? So it was very vivid, all the stars and things?
Well, it
like
was. I mean, first of all, in 1959, there wasn't a lot of the same kind of pollution,
Right. Yeah.
even in a suburb of Minneapolis. It was
Okay.
just regular houses, next to each other, but there was a big space. And anyway, so we went, when we moved to St. Paul, my mother and my brother and sister, we moved in with my grandparents, and the timing of that. I know why I was saying that about the sky, because I could always preoccupy myself with something.
Right.
I never was bored. I just was never bored. And I always had these things. I had relationships with trees, with lakes, Minnesota, land of lakes.
A relationship with trees, you say?
Yes.
Wolfgang
exactly.
and Wolfgang and the like, and the gang.
Wolfgang and the like. Actually, in one of the trees, when I was very young, we had this character. We swear as kids we saw her. Her name was Giant Karen. And yeah, and the whole neighborhood like, hey, did you see Giant Karen?
This is amazing. No, Mad Lib is the same as this. That's so interesting.
Well, what's incredible, to tell you the truth, is that many times people think children are just making up stuff.
Right.
I'm not so sure that's the case.
I think they're more aware of everything.
They're more aware of the very subtle forms of life, let's put it that way.
Right.
Because first of all, they're not as clouded, they're not as educated.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they just don't remember their past lives as much,
Yeah, sure.
But the point is, they're more open.
Right.
And I used to.
Do you think that? Sorry, do you think that they live more in the moment? I mean, it seems like as I get older, I struggle more to stay in the moment. I feel like kids are, they're playing and they're using their imagination and things like that. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely there. And to lose that, first of all, you don't have to lose that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's vital. For any kind of artistic spark, as a matter of fact, you can see many players and musicians and artists of all kinds. And I'll tell you, art is a big territory because we've had a plumber who was an artist. In other words, their jobs were so, you looked at it and you felt great. It wasn't just because everything was so lined up just right.
Mm-hmm.
There was something about what he brought to the situation. I think he really enjoyed what he did.
Sure. Yeah.
And I've seen it with all sorts of people, with either taxi drivers, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it opens up the whole domain of what is art. And I think it's foolish, frankly, that people who consider themselves in the arts think those are the only arts.
Yeah.
They are not.
Right.
Any stretch of the imagination.
Well, what would be your definition of art then? Is it something that you can put yourself into then? Because you're saying a plumber could really enjoy it and he's bringing something else to it that's not just going through the motions, I guess? Is that what you mean by that?
Yes. It's something that actually turns the person brighter.
Mm.
It turns the person on.
Okay.
In a real sense.
Yeah.
Something lights them up. And they find themselves in a total state of connectedness with that. You can see it in a mathematician. You
Yeah.
can see it in a scientist. Any great teacher you've had, no matter what the subject you've had in school, you can tell that that teacher has an affair
Yeah.
with that subject.
Right.
That essence of that subject gets into them. And if they're prone, if their aptitudes in themselves are prone to that subject in a real way, then the essence of that subject gets in them and goes, we're going to have fun. We got an instrument here.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You see what I mean? So,
Absolutely.
when someone says, oh, that person, something really got into that person. Well, yes, it did.
Right.
Yes, it did. What is inspiration? What is being, you just, I'll tell you, when I saw that trombone, to tell you the truth, when I was 4, I kept bothering my mother. Okay, so it's been a year now. It's been 2 years. It's getting closer to when I get it. I'd keep reminding her.
Yeah.
I did not forget it.
Right.
When you really love something, you don't forget it.
Yeah.
And when people do forget what they love, that's a problem.
Yes.
That's a big problem. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, absolutely.
So for me, it was a lifesaver in a certain kind of way. That's why I meant, boy, that timing that I could start a year early, right when my parents got divorced, was incredibly important for me.
Absolutely.
Because I had kind of person that has a lot of things inside them anyway. And when I got that thing, I was like, and before that, I was drawing pictures all the time. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll just go into drawing or painting or something.
Right. Yeah.
Or, so that's what happened with that.
Okay.
And I just jumped on it, and I just kept playing. I kind of wanted to be more like J.J. Johnson when I first started.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then my mother she happened to have a recording of the William Tell Overture with Attaro Toscanini in the NBC Symphony.
Oh, yes.
It's got a fantastic trombone section.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so on fire, this piece. I was like, as soon as that was on, my head turned towards our little hi-fi, and it was a 78 recording, an album. And I was hooked. I said,
right.
I'm going to be in an orchestra.
Wow.
It was that quick.
And what age was that? What age was that again? That you
10.
Think? 10. Okay. So right around when you were getting the trombone, or
I had the trombone.
You had the trombone
for, I don't know. I don't know exactly how long it was. I don't know if it was. I maybe had the trombone for 6-7 months, something like that. Maybe a little bit more, and then that recording came on, and that was that.
Right.
That was that.
So you were hungry for the trombone before you got it, and that you think that waiting, that anticipation, kind of launched you into the trombone even faster than most. Definitely faster than I did. I started in middle school just as like, here, try this instrument, and I remember my band teacher holding up a trombone in the front of the class, and I was like, whoa, like that's the coolest thing I've ever seen, or something like that. Like I don't remember the exact thought in my head, but I was mesmerized by it. So I had a similar thing, but this anticipation that you felt, kind of, could you put it down? I mean, were you practicing a lot?
When I first picked it up, I just wanted to be with it the whole time. I just wanted to be with it. I didn't care what I was doing. I didn't care whether it was right or wrong. Right. And then I started studying with a trumpet teacher. And then at the end of my first year of playing, I think I went to a music camp and was playing, summer. Well, it wasn't a music camp, actually, the first year. It was a summer kind of maybe band, maybe a little bit of orchestra.
Okay.
And that's all I wanted to do, period.
Right.
That's all I wanted to do. And look up in the sky.
Yeah.
And some other things, but music was a great expression for me and always was. And then I would start listening to classical records all the time.
So that would be my next question to you then is the trombone for me was kind of like an entry point into my love of music. I don't know if like I still love playing the trombone, I guess, but just the music as a whole and what it represents and things like that kind of took on more of my passion than just the trombone. Is that similar for you too? Would you say?
You mean starting when? Like, oh yeah, I think so. I know what you're saying. Even back then, I was into music and listening to other instruments as much as I was the trombone.
Okay, yeah.
Even back when I was 10 and 11.
Right.
I loved, hearing the different instruments. In fact, I will say that I've learned as much from other instruments than I have from trombone.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt for me. I mean, I was very interested in listening to great oboists. I mean, we're talking about when I was, in 11, 12.
Wow.
And
yeah.
Bassoonists and violinists. I used to know a lot of the violin concertos.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to pretend I was playing them with the orchestra in back of me. And I used to conduct, pictures at an exhibition and all these pieces. And so I was building a relationship with this art form and what it did to me. I didn't wait for someone to tell me how to conduct. I didn't wait for someone to tell me exactly how to play.
Right.
And that's just, everyone's different. So this is just what happened to me for any number of circumstances. But, the waiting time is interesting that you brought that out. I've never had anyone ask me that. But it makes sense because it was building, like you draw something back and then it let go. There's going to be a lot of power in it.
Yeah. Like a slingshot, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Bow and arrow or something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you bring it back all the way till it's silent and let that go. It's going to come from a much deeper place.
Yes.
And so that's what happened. And I think, just to have a side note of that, sometimes I wonder if people know how to wait anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is so instant.
Yeah.
We had to wait and ask my dad. I saw this record in Target. It was the Cleveland Orchestra Brass Section, the Chicago Symphony Brass Section, and the Philadelphia Brass Section playing Gabriele, and they're all standing smiling on the front.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I asked my dad, I saw this, I said, Dad, and we didn't have a lot of money at all. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the Sundays I saw my dad after they were divorced every Sunday. So that was always an interesting time, very difficult to leave and one of those things.
Right.
And so when I saw this recording, I said, do you think I can get this? And I think the price was like $2. Mm-hmm. And he kind of looked and he thought about it. He said, oh, okay. Because $2 was big for him.
Yeah. Wow.
And, but I got it. And totally wore it out. As well as the recordings I got of Dennis Brain.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Who I listened to him all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was in youth orchestras a lot. I soloed a lot with my bands and youth orchestras. I played a lot of different solos. My first time I was 12 with an orchestra. I was at a music camp. I played Morceau Symphonique.
Wow.
with members of the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And God knows how it sounded, but I
There's no recordings of it?
No. No one was, had their iPhone out.
Yeah, right.
And it was, I think everyone got a kick out of seeing this teeny kid, kind of go out like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I got the music 2 weeks ahead of time. And because he said, hey, I got a solo for you. So had a couple weeks and played it.
Wow.
And then I studied after the trumpet player, whose name was Ed Van Hoff, I studied with Ronald Ricketts, who was second trombone of the Minneapolis Symphony at that time, soon to turn Minnesota Orchestra.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And he was great. He is a great trombonist and a great, very good teacher. And yeah, it was just really a good time. But there are times I couldn't take lessons. And one time there was 8 months I didn't take a lesson. And then I started to study with Stephen Zellmer, who was principal trombone of the Minnesota Orchestra.
Okay.
We went to a concert. I heard him play on stage, and he was warming up for Beethoven's Fifth. And I heard these sound like a bell come out of his horn, the clarity.
Wow.
And I looked, because my orchestra director took me to that concert. He's a great guy, Linville Dome. Terrific. And what a great youth orchestra. That was the orchestra in the junior high. It wasn't even an all-state or an all-city orchestra.
Okay. Yeah.
So he was very devoted to his students and everything. And I'll tell you, hearing Zellmer play those high Fs and high Cs and stuff, I just went, wow, and I thought he kind of sold me on something. I didn't know how great of a just person and teacher and how similar in certain ways we really were. It was pretty out there. And of course, people, if there's trombone players listening to this, will have heard of the Zellmer competition, which he started on his deathbed.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Which is very interesting, because I don't think he was ever a member of ITA or anything like that. Which maybe, and I'm not either, but there's nothing against it. It's just different strokes for different folks.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so there's a little bit. I mean, I'm just going on, giving some people some history. I played, the Wagenseil, the Alberschberger on tenor, because I didn't have an alto.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
In high school with the orchestra.
Nice.
And the Creston. That was the last one I did, the senior in high school with the youth orchestra. I went to Tango in the Young Artist Program.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
A couple of times.
In high school?
Yeah, they had the BUTI.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They called that Tanglewood too, because it was at Tanglewood. But then when I was still in high school, I did get into what I guess today was called the TMC.
Yeah, right.
So I was still in high school, but it was called BMC.
BMC. Okay.
Yeah. Let me clarify that for you, okay?
Please do.
Talking about excrement. It was Berkshire Music Center. Got
you. Okay. Thank you. I needed that.
Then, yeah, good. I know.
Fecal matter on the brain,
Then I got into NEC, and I had been listening to John Swallow ever since I was 12 on his recording. That was my present I got for when I was 12 years old. Plus an embouchure visualizer. My dad looked at it and he said, "This better be a great bubble blower." Because it had the little handle for $12.
Wow,
it better be a great bubble blower. See those bubbles?
A bubble blower.
Well,
Yeah, you could use it for that, I'm sure.
Yeah, you probably could. And so that's some of the things that were happening at the music level of life. And I was very into it and very intense with it, and was playing all sorts of things that I guess people my age shouldn't have been able to play.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you were 20, you got into the Boston Symphony?
Yeah. I first started playing with them, though, when I was 19.
Okay.
In fact, my first job, I mean, when I got to NEC, it was kind of an odd thing. I was all set to go to school. I mean, I'm not a school type person, even though I've been at NEC and been teaching since I've been 12. I've never done any other kind of job.
Wow. Really?
So yeah, I started teaching when I was 12. And what else happened? See?
Well, can you take us through how you, I mean, you said you played with the BSO when you were 19, and then you had to audition and get in, and
well, what happened is when I got to Boston, there was all these auditions open up, and I thought, okay, I'll take them. A really fine trombonist named Milton Stevens, who used to be principal of the National Symphony.
Yeah.
He had left town, and actually the year before that, I took from him because he was the teacher at BUTI.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, so I auditioned for all these things, the Springfield Symphony, which is a great symphony orchestra. It was back then, with Robert Guda conducting, and, Mark Gould was first trumpet.
Wow. So, that sounds fun.
There was a big age gap there, maybe 8 years. So I don't know how much fun it was for him. But anyway, so it was a great orchestra. And I got into that. I got into the Cambridge Brass Quintet, the Boston Opera Company, the Boston Ballet Company. I was doing all this work. And I'm just not the kind who can go to school and do all that work.
Right.
So I had to leave. I had to leave after several months, but I still came back and played a lot of different things for Gunther Schuller, who really was really great, very strict. And he would break me through the coals, but there was always a great musical result at the end. And then my first time to play with the symphony was actually at a Pops concert, and they needed someone to come in and play Bolero.
Oh.
This would have been near the end of my freshman year.
Right.
If I was in school at NEC. So they called me up and said, look, we're doing Bolero in 2 weeks. Can you come and, no rehearsal. Can you come and do it? I said, yeah. Because I'd been playing with a lot of the freelancers in town, right? And they said, well, yeah, get this guy. Try him out,
Yeah.
So I did. So I went, and that was a fascinating thing. I got that music ahead of time, and every day I ran it through twice, the program. And there was like the Finale de Tchaikovsky 4 on it, Capriccio Italian on it.
Oh my gosh.
All the couple of big marches, English marches on it. And it opened up with Brahms' Academic Festival Overture and doing all this stuff. And then after 5-6 pieces, Bolero.
That hurts. That hurts to hear about.
But I was really prepared.
Yeah, that sounds.
I was really prepared, and I felt I almost came in a solo too early. So thank you. I didn't because they made a cut.
Oh yeah.
And so, anyway, so that went well, and I had a whole exchange with Arthur Fiedler. If you've ever heard of Arthur Fiedler in the Boston Pops. So he looks at me, he calls me into the room before the concert. Says, young man, I said, how are you? I said, good. And he said, look, in Capriccio Spagnolo, when the harp's doing their cadenza, I'm going to look at you and you're going to go, dot, 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 dot. He said, is that clear? I said, yes. And I had played that piece before in high school, so I was happy about it.
Wow.
And then, as he said, okay, good. So I'm walking out the door and he says, young man, I turned around and said, yes. Can you play the Bolero? I'll never forget. Can you play the Bolero? I said, yes. Because, and he said, good. Because the thing is, there was a time where trombonists could write it out of the contract.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they could write it out.
Yeah.
They could write it out. And some people in the orchestra, Ron Barron used to play it beautifully, really beautifully.
Oh, you mean that they would write it out of the contract so they never had to play it? That's what you mean?
Exactly.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. Huh.
And just like certain trumpet players will write out the Brandenburg. It's just not their thing.
Right,
but now everyone can play Bolero.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, when it first came out, it was like, whew, unless you were maybe some of the French orchestras and Ravel loved, like a lot of the people back then, loved hearing the freeness of Dorsey's playing.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, I think, I can't remember exactly what I was saying, but that was an unusual experience, and that's why he asked me that question.
Right.
Because I think he had some players in previous times that used to have a difficult time playing it.
Sure. Yeah.
So luckily it went well, so that was good. But then I had to, of course, audition for the orchestra in the opening. I auditioned for principal, and there were the last three finalists, which was Ron Barron, Mark Lawrence, and myself.
Wow. Yeah.
And that would have been, I don't know, in the middle of my sophomore year at NEC if I had been still in school.
Okay.
So, then they had a second opening because Ron Barron was second.
Oh, okay.
And then they had a couple sets of, we had this one audition, then we had another one, not another audition, but another round, and they boiled it down to Milt Stevens and I.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
Someone I studied with.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was interesting. But, I guess the cards turned into a certain favor for me that day, and I don't know if my natural tendency was to be a second trombonist, frankly.
Okay.
I had too many strong musical feelings that flow through me, and so, I know you have to compromise and go with the situation. I understand.
Right.
But that was the fact. But it still was great. It's a great range to play in, and I love a lot of the parts that it has. And some days you can be playing that chair and go, gosh, I'm happy I don't have to come in that high note right now. So I learned to appreciate it more. And I played principal and pops after the first 8 years. And for my last 4 years in the orchestra, I played principal and pops, and it was great. Right. I had a great time doing that with John Williams.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I carried on for a while with that. There's many mentors I had in the Boston Symphony, from the principal bassoon Sherman Walp to Armando Gatala to Chester Schmitz on tuba to Rolf Smedvig. And of course, I joined the Empire Brass Quintet also.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that was a great thing to do. I was in it for 5 years, and then I left because I wanted to leave. Sure.
Well, yeah, that was a pretty complete history. I appreciate that. No, that was amazing. I mean, I learned so much. I would like to ask you about how this idea of focus, because I mean, you seem like a very focused person, and your passion kind of speaks through your focus. And I was just wondering how does focus play a role in your life? I mean, you seem to, I mean, we talk often about meditative practice and things like that. And that's something that I like to talk about on the Tone Dome here, about meditation and certain things like that. So would you be open to sharing sort of where you're at now and where you were when you were younger? I mean, we were talking about how you were looking at the stars and nothing bored you. And I think that's kind of interesting because a lot of people seem to get bored easily these days. So
yeah, well, let me qualify that. I've been thinking about it, because I've said that many times. I didn't get bored, and here's the reason why.
Okay.
Because if there was a subject that I wasn't into, my mind could easily shift to something that it was very interesting in.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't know if that's because I was bored with what they were talking about, or there was something about what was happening and the way it was being presented that just maybe the subject itself didn't automatically attract me,
Right.
and the way it was presented didn't draw me in.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So focus, it's interesting. Focus is an interesting territory because I heard a great yogi say that concentration and focus is like when the bee who goes from flower to flower to flower to try to find the one that has the nectar for it.
Mm.
Once it's found, it's totally focused. It's totally concentrated. Right?
Right. Yeah.
So in that way, now at the level of the human being, it's similar in the sense of someone, and you were hungry for it, put your favorite dessert down in front of you. You have to say, okay, I just got to get everything else out of my mind before I eat this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that would happen.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking. Like in our world, you can put on the TV and eat your dessert, right? So it's not like you're focused so much on that dessert. It's just adding to the overall experience that you're having. But it seems like what we talk about is more of practicing focus, like making sure you have that ability, I guess, maybe.
You know, it's funny. I was just talking with a couple of people about this very subject who maybe find a problem with what I would call drift.
Mm-hmm.
Their mind seems to drift
Yes.
from one thing to this. So they're playing a little bit, and then the next thing they know, how to get 5 measures later. Part of that, what almost seems to be semi-conscious, is once we learn how to do something, we don't have to think about it in a certain kind of way. Remember when you learned how to ride a bike?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's awkward at first, and then kind of becomes a part of you, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You were very, very focused when you were first learning.
Yes.
It was not in your automatic systems, which is something I call the first overlay. Mm-hmm. It wasn't in it. Your automatic part of you did not get the hang of it yet. And so you have to keep thinking. And you have to be very focused because there's a big focusing agent waiting for you called pain.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Pain is definitely focusing.
That's very focusing.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because pain itself is very focusing, but it's not something most people are attracted to.
Right.
Okay.
Most people.
Yeah. Especially, let's go for a ride and let's fall off our bikes going, 30 miles an hour. That's downhill.
Incredibly masochistic. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
mm-hmm.
After that, then when the mind and the automatic systems feel, oh, I got this, then more skill comes in, the ability to do things differently with variety come in, and then, and that's great. That's part of it.
Right.
Okay, so then all of a sudden you're not worrying about falling off. And then you go, look, Ma, no hands,
Mm-hmm.
And you're getting really happy and people are looking at you, and then there's a tree you're not seeing right in front of you. So that's an interesting thing that can start to happen when the ego starts to get involved and starts using certain things as a show-off device.
Yes.
I'm not saying I was free from all that, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? If I saw some when I was young, some girls that I liked maybe in the neighborhood or something, and I was maybe 12 or 13 or something, I would try to get their attention, and I always did something dumb. I just, because when you're doing that in a certain way, you are disconnected from you.
Yeah.
You're disconnected from the task that you're doing, the action you're actually doing at hand.
Right.
So that is a very unfocused state. When you're trying to just show off for the sake of showing off.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's interesting in itself. And so there are a lot of people who are having concentration problems these days. Obviously, there's reasons for that. I think people are preoccupied with what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And many other things too, that have been noticed building up for a while. I don't know if, well, there's a lot of, that's a big subject to kind of get into, but one is that I think people are doing so many different multitasking things, and they're just kind of a little bit too dispersed, and it's hard for them to just get with the one thing before the bored factor comes in, or the frustrated factor comes in,
right,
or they get frustrated too soon because they don't want to. We'll bring it back to wait.
Yes.
If I said to you, well, look, in 10 years you'll get that. And people got to wonder why. Why would that take 10 years?
Right.
Well, I can tell you, being at a certain age right now, some things might take 50 or 40. You can get it when you're younger, but it's not the same.
Right.
It's not the same because you haven't gone on a journey enough to see the ins and outs of something in a certain way.
Right.
So focusing itself, I didn't get interested in meditation, for example, so I could focus. That was something that my interest in more of the what would appear to be the unseen part of life happened pretty early, and wanting to know the meaning of life and why we're here and why does it end was really big in me from a very young age. And so you notice that worrying about something is an incredibly focused state.
Yes.
You know, people get very focused sometimes before auditions, but a lot of it can be a lot of worry.
They're focused on the worry. That's what you mean. Yeah.
They're focused on the feelings of gain and loss.
Yeah, right.
Will I lose this? What will people think? I want to win this. I understand, of course. And, you know, my situation, kind of, you know, we're getting into something that young was pretty, you know, lucky. That's not too usual. I mean, it happens. But then there's other things that go on with that. If I were to tell you that when I got into the orchestra, what was it, a couple of months in, 3-4 months in, I had an incredible experience where I looked around. There was this really big awareness thing that came to me like this. And I was very, very conscious, very, very aware of the circumstances. And I remember that first happening when I was in a hospital at 2.5. And I remember different points in my life. It was really powerful. And I knew that something big was there that I had to tap into.
Right. Because
those moments were beyond focus. It was totally in it. It was totally aware of the circumstance. And that, you know, was happening.
Well, what do you mean by aware of the circumstance? I mean, are you talking like you lost yourself in that moment? Like we have thoughts going on in our head and things like that, and it seems like when you can rid yourself of that and become aware of the situation, like you were saying, you kind of become more one with everything else instead of just what's going on inside of your head. Maybe is that what you're getting at?
You're onto something with that. Exactly right. My little thoughts of let's say, one of the times I remember this very clearly, I was in first grade, and all of a sudden that it came on, and everything feels like it stops.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just almost, you're aware of awareness.
Yes.
Which is a very deep thing, actually.
Yeah.
That's a deeper part of you. It's just the unencumbered, unfilled up, conscious mind.
Right.
And it went really deep because I got very just aware of things. And in a sense, I did lose my little self, but I think I was more in touch with maybe a self that's much larger.
Right. Yeah. The self that's interconnected with other things, I guess. Right. Or there's like a flat line kind of self, and then there's like the waviness kind of self, right? Maybe, I don't know if I'm describing that well, but
different systems of thought might think about it in certain ways.
Mm-hmm.
In yogic terms, the what we'd call the soul or the Atman,
yeah,
is very, very conscious. That consciousness, that bigger self,
right,
the essence of you that is not your personality, that is not your worries, your frustrations, your gain and loss impressions,
yeah,
that sometimes govern a whole person. It's not about your influences growing up or your conditioned family life or your genetics going way, way back.
yeah.
When those moments happen, you are aware of yourself as a living entity. And I remember when it happened in first grade, I said, like someone else observing almost.
Yeah.
And witnessing, here I am in first grade. Almost matter of fact, but
right.
very aware of the fact of where my body and circumstance was doing at that time.
Right.
So that would happen in my sleep. Like
in dreams and things like that? That's what you mean?
I was very, very wide awake in my dreams.
Okay. Yeah.
But also the dreamless state.
Yes.
So very conscious in deep sleep.
The even deeper than the dream.
Yeah, deep sleep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So once in a while these things would happen, even before I was meditating. And so I was very drawn to things. I had to understand what this whole life, birth, death thing was. So I wanted to know about that as much as I wanted to know about the trombone.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, the trombone in itself, that was my instrument. I didn't love it more than any other instrument, even though I thought it sounded great. I love it more as a section and choir instrument, almost than a solo instrument.
Yeah.
There's some fantastic, classical soloists now, symphonic soloists for sure, right, as we all know.
Mm-hmm.
Jazz players, I don't know, they take a different ride with it though.
Yeah.
It's they're really floating along there. Some of them are just taking you for a ride.
Yes.
And it gets really amazing.
Yeah.
And so I'm not like a trombone enthusiast as such.
Right.
And then when I hurt myself playing in the orchestra, that was very conscious. And then that actually pushed me into my whole thing about, okay, what's this all about? And this actually getting back a couple of years before that, that's where all this thing kind of spun off to.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
If we're not losing people, is I was in the orchestra after a few months in the orchestra, and all of a sudden I got this very conscious thing come in, okay, like I was talking about. And all I could say was, is this all there is? And the realization for a second of that, for some reason, hit me very deep right in my navel. It just like like someone took a pole. I'm like,
Mm.
"Ugh." I almost went like that. I don't know if it could have maybe even been physically seen. But the shock, it was a shock. It was a giant wake up to me, like, actually, no, this is not what life's all about.
Yeah.
And I just realized at that point, I could not put off the continued strength of that pursuit.
Right.
And that's where meditation came in.
Got you.
And did that help me focus on my music more? I can't really say for me that was the situation.
Okay.
It changed my comprehension. I went into many other kinds of deep arts. And I realized, from a great mentor, is saying, music is a living thing.
Yeah.
Music is a living thing. Why we try to make everything duplicated and sound the same, I have no idea.
Mm-hmm. It's never going to, right?
It's never going to, but I think it's good to have, look, if you want to have intention and have consistency in the range, I'm talking about where that leads if music is not poured in right away with it. People get fragmented.
Mm-hmm.
Just like this thing with excerpts and all that. And people wonder why they can't focus. You know why? They're not making it alive for themselves.
Yeah.
If it were alive for you, you would be more in it.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, with someone the other day, just to give you an idea of focus, because you asked about this focus, not everyone can just sit there in a focused state like this, even in meditation.
Yes.
And everyone knows that if they've tried to meditate.
It's very
hard. No matter
hard.
what the technique.
Mm-hmm.
Some techniques, require more like you being there. Others, you got to kind of let it go.
Yep.
And just like that. Either one, people can have a lot of thoughts.
Yeah.
And you don't try to get rid of them, but sometimes it can feel like you're just drowning in your thoughts.
Yeah.
They'll eventually go away. Different stresses, different physiological, mental, emotional stresses can cause that.
Right.
But at the same time, there are different ways also to focus your mind with changing patterns. Like going from one thing to another thing. And it's almost like you can do it in a rhythm if you know yourself well that escapes your drift factor because you're consciously taking hold of it by creating the change yourself.
Mm-hmm.
This same principle, by the way, for brass players, some people start to develop a wobble in their embouchure, okay? Or they have a vibrato they don't want to be there.
Yeah.
We get nervous, or sometimes this quiver in the bottom lip, sometimes other things, other parts of us.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a lip quiver, for people, if you get that, do a microscopic, I know 7 different kinds of vibrato at least, but I'll just start, do a very subtle jaw vibrato. And you know what that does? That puts you in the driver's seat.
In the driver's seat, yeah.
So the involuntary shake now becomes voluntary at your tempo. And you can learn to do this microscopic jaw vibrato in such a way no one will even know you're doing it.
Right.
But it'll be enough to let the muscles relax and have a form and a structure take over them.
Well, let's go with this a little bit because I think that what's been the most helpful about talking about this sort of thing with you specifically, it has been performance anxiety related issues that I've had in the past, and I'm sure you've heard me crash and burn in things before, and that's fine. But they're all learning experiences. But I think that with the meditative practice that we were talking about before, and this idea of a slowly massaging kind of vibrato, very slow and but you're in the driver's seat mentally, I guess, is what I'm saying, and that takes consciousness and a conscious effort to do that for a long period of time, just as if you were meditating and trying to be focused, like meditative, right? I guess. So that's what's helped me the most about what you have been talking about in the past couple minutes, is just like finding something to keep my attention the whole time. It doesn't have to be the same thing. And sometimes I even write in what I want to think about, but in my music. But I find that helps so much. It's like just giving your mind something to do that's not worrying about what's coming up or worrying about what I screwed up, I guess. Is it something, a prompt to keep you in the moment?
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting because some people call that a distraction. You're distracting your mind. That's one way to look at it, but maybe it's actually knowing your brain or your mind and how it works.
Yeah.
To try to find those things that you're putting in it, a means of connection besides your worry if it's sounding good.
Yeah, right.
You know, this is the problem. People get really worried. Do they sound good? You know, what are they going to think of me? You know?
Right. The stakes, right? What you were talking about before, like there's a lot of pressures that are in the room when you're performing for people or something like that. You know, that like you want to sound good for whoever you're playing for, obviously, but in order to do that, you can't force it. You can't like be like, I'm going to sound good right now and then right now and right now. It's like, you know.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. The interesting thing to realize in this is that every person is unique.
Mm-hmm.
So what works for me at this particular even point in my life wouldn't work for me when I was 20.
Sure. Yeah.
And the same thing with everybody. So someone says, here's a focusing technique. This will work for everyone. Well, that's nonsense because it won't. That's why there's a variety of technology.
Mm-hmm.
Technology is born out of need.
Yep.
It's born out of need. So if something isn't working, well, you go like this. You go, as a great mentor of mine said to me, he said, if you can't find it, make it.
Yes.
And sometimes people think, well, who am I to make anything? I'm just still the student. Nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
You are the student, maybe at certain points. I still consider myself a student in a certain kind of way of life.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I'm always learning things about the instrument I've been playing for God knows how long, you know,
Yeah.
over 50 years for sure.
Right.
And so, 55, I don't know, 56, I don't know how long, something like that.
Right.
And so, 57? No, something like that. But my point is that you can always learn.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're finding, well, what's with my focus? Understand that sometimes if you put something new in front of you, you get focused, and then you'll find what you're most focused. If you have a whole bunch of things in front of you, you'll find what you're focused in. One of the things will jump out at you.
Yeah.
Okay? But even the fact of your mind, oh, it can move over here now, which is probably people of this age of being on computers all day long, flicking switches and just, you know, you have more than any library had and books when I was growing up, just with a flick of a switch.
Right.
And so people's minds are just addicted to speed and adrenaline.
Yeah. Well, they switch, the focus shifts so fast, right? I think, like, I don't know. I have talks with my friends sometimes about reading books and things like that, and I think that requires a certain level of focus to read, because if you read a page and then you find you're like, I didn't really read that, you know, like I get to the end of the page and I was thinking about what I had for dinner yesterday or something instead of actually reading the page, then
Here, and I know you've heard me say this before.
Yeah.
Start with what you can do.
Yeah. Right.
Start with what you can do. And even if you get frustrated, start with what you can do. And maybe that'll prevent you from practicing frustration, because practice is what you do on a regular basis. So if you're practicing anxiety, frustration, lack of focus on a regular basis, your automatic systems will go, sure, we'll deliver that up for you.
Yeah.
Because that's what you've programmed it to do.
Yeah. Humans are habit repeaters, right? Or just habit builders. We build habits constantly with myelin and chemicals and all that stuff in your brain. And I think my old teacher, David Schmidt, he described it, or he talked about the actual chemical thing where your neurons in your brain get wrapped with a chemical called myelin as you do something. And if you do it really often, it'll get really thick. So in order to, if that is a bad habit, you can just keep wrapping it along. But then if it's a good habit, you want to keep that. But if you're trying to fix a bad habit, the reason why it's so hard is because you have this physical thing that's channeling your brain energy through it, whereas you need to create a new habit chemically, I guess, right?
You need, create some new pathways in your brain.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
And that actually does happen, okay? But for those, for example, someone, like yourself, be really interested in all the chemical and neurological interactions, it's fascinating because there'll always be a physiological result. Chemically, hormonally, neurologically, in your circulatory system, when you think something. And so it's very interesting and important and facing to know the truth of you become what you think about.
Yeah.
You become what you think about, and you can, all these things are wrapped up, but the human being can change.
Yeah.
And this whole process of being with something, starting with what you can do, even if it's reading, because people don't read a lot anymore.
Yeah.
Really. Rather watch it in a video.
Yeah.
Well, the point is, if you really want to start reading a little bit more, you start with the first sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Or here, you get it out of your system. Your mind go, you read it and read it and read it and let your mind go all over the place. And then after the page go, well, I didn't know what I did. But at least you got that habit out of the way so you won't be suppressing that tendency that has been literally printed into your system to do and programmed to do. So you start with the first sentence and go, the first word is the.
Yep.
Then the next word, tree. Next word, dog.
The tree dog.
Well, I was going down a different road with that. But the tree, dog, sometimes it might summon up an image,
Yes.
So the point is that you see the different words and you can build your memory back.
Yeah.
You can build it back. See, what did you get out of that first sentence? He said, I see what they're saying, but I don't know what else is coming. I got to read the next one then.
Yep.
But I mean, really start with what you can do. And musicians a lot of times are in such maybe a rush for any number of reasons to keep learning literature and all that. They don't want to start with what they can do. A lot of brass players, and sometimes that, of course, will lead to physical injury.
Yep. Right.
And a lot of mental anxiety.
Yeah.
Instead of actually taking the time to make friends with an F sharp in third position.
Yes.
I mean, spend time to build that relationship. If you're building a relationship with everything, there's a whole different sentiment and a whole different attitude.
Right.
So yes, meditation can help many things, and other things besides meditation can help things like focus and concentration. Eventually, if someone finds a meditative process that works for them, it'll help settle them, be more in what's called the parasympathetic nervous system, which
Right.
is the one that is not in fight or flight.
Right.
And that'll make them feel more settled in themselves. And then be able to look at something without too much fear and worry eventually, if that's what happens to a person.
Right. So what we were in, I know you'd like to, or I'd like you to mention the class that I participated in last night, but we talked at length about this sort of thing of getting rid of kind of the, you're starting with what you can do, right? That you're getting rid of the disappointment factor, like, oh, I can't do that yet, but I'm just gonna try it anyway, or something like that. But start with what you can do, and don't be disappointed that you can't do what, because it'll come, right? And you're starting to build the habit in that direction, I guess. So can you talk about these classes and what
Sure.
what you
Well,
talk about in them and things like that?
sure.
Yeah.
If anyone is interested in them, by the way, all they have to do is email me at normtobe@gmail.com or nhbolter@aol.com.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's fine. And a lot of people know I've sent out some emails. You can't send it out to everyone, but because sometimes you just don't know everyone to send it out to. But first of all, I have Frequency Bone Summer Music Connection. A lot of people know about that. It's been going on for 12 years. And it was me. I had a blog before that and still have it. But I wanted to put videos on the blog and I couldn't, and we had to put them on YouTube. So there's definitely over 100 YouTube videos of these Frequency Bone Summer Music Connection. So we've had 12 already. And last summer was the first one that was it was on Zoom instead of just a public YouTube video.
Right.
And there still were some public YouTube videos, but having it on Zoom, and we made some recordings people can find out. I made one for Ronald Ricketts, the second trombone player of the Minnesota Orchestra, because he passed away this summer. And I wrote a piece about him. You can Google that. And another piece this summer session was put up about the vitamin of will, which is an interesting, really, because will is so important. Without will, you're ill.
Right. Beam, bom, ba bom, beam, beam, bom. Sorry, it just popped into my head. I had to say.
Right. I'm with the battle of life.
Yes.
That's right. Another tune that I wrote. And so I've written a lot of music, as you know.
Yes.
Well over 300 pieces, more like 350.
Yeah, it says on your bio that you've written more trombone or pieces for the trombone than any composer in history. Is that true?
Well, you know what? That's what I've been told, and I haven't heard of anyone else writing more than that. For all we know, there were.
Maybe.
But
yeah.
And mine aren't even all published.
Right.
I have only maybe 40 or 45 are published. Just, my wife started a business, but she's, a functional health practitioner and a clinical psychologist and many other things, and doesn't always have time for every publishing thing. And
right.
So it's a, unless we get a staff, it's difficult to do. But, so those YouTube videos up there, music's out there, Hickey sells the music. And I started, people didn't want to leave after the Zoom sessions in the summers. So we started something called the Amazing Club. We call it TAC, TAC. And we get together Thursday evenings, 7 to 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. And that's kind of going into the deep end of things. There are
Yes.
meditative practices that we do, as you see,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe you found those very focusing.
They were definitely, yeah.
And
I mean, I've incorporated many things that we've done into just my daily life. So,
yeah, well, if music's
Yeah.
a living thing like life, then
yeah,
it makes sense. You haven't ever had a life without rhythm, pitch, and timbre.
that's right. Mm-hmm.
And TAC is based on, like the frequency bone summer music connection, which was about this summer music and the natural worlds. The main fundamental tuning note that people tune to is creation is non-human made. Now that's what people around the world should be talking about during these times. Nature is non-human made. No human being created the universe. Who's going to disagree with that?
That's something we can all get behind, I think.
Exactly. And that's what we need, more unifying. Everyone's born, everyone lives, and everyone says bye-bye.
Yep.
Okay? So you start really focusing on what is the same. You know, the differences. And that's one of the mysteries of living in a creation that's based in duality. Same and different exist at the same time.
Right.
So we get into things like this in TAC, but everything we do in the Amazing Club, we call it the Amazing Club because it's amazing everyone wants to do it.
Yeah.
And it's based on some writings of a book I wrote of 200 pages called The TAC Legend Writings, which I read sometimes
Mm-hmm.
too. It's not published. And then there's something called Let's Warm Up, and that's turning into a once a week warm up. Okay, on Zoom. Sometimes quite a few people are coming on, and it's nice. So, and it's fun. The warm-ups aren't not exactly the same each time.
Yeah.
And there's other little hints and advice thrown in, but we're doing things and playing together. And then I'm having a monthly masterclass series. In that monthly masterclass series, the first one, there's like a list of 30 masterclasses on that. It'll go for at least an hour and a half. It might go more if things are happening. Probably no more than 2 hours because that's a lot.
Yeah.
Especially in certain ways, maybe I'll get into gets to be a lot. The first one is on the mechanics of warming up. And it starts January 23rd at 11 a.m.
Nice.
And people need a Zoom link. So those who are interested should get in touch with me about any of the things I brought up. There is a price for them, and I try to make it as reasonable as possible. I think you would call them pretty reasonable.
It's incredibly reasonable and very worth it, yes.
And so students, right,
Mhm.
have to pay either, it's a window, $5 to $10 for
Mhm.
each session, and working professionals or people out of school, 15 to 20 for each session. I think that's reasonable. The warm-ups are a donation of $3.50. Okay, if that's an issue for people, they can get in touch with me, and we can see what we can work out. But I think that's pretty reasonable. Of course, some people give more than that, which is really, in this culture, that's a way of kind of showing some value.
Right.
People say, well, this person charges this much for a lesson. They must be a great teacher, so expensive.
Right.
On that note, I had to raise my price a bit at one time because mine was much lower.
Mm.
And people were getting funny ideas about money. But I want to be as inclusive as many people as possible. I don't care, what you're... the thing is with TAC, people should really at least be 20 or 21. I just think that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, I don't know, the next warm-up session will probably be this coming Tuesday.
Yeah.
I'm going to send something out. And so the master classes, though, I think are a little bit more. $10 for a student and a window of maybe 15 to 20 for others. But like I said, if people really want to come on, then they can say, hey, can I throw in whatever for that?
Yeah.
But people, I think, are used to paying a lot more than what I'm charging.
Yes. Yes,
so
we are.
I just wanted to be inclusive, okay?
Yes.
I wanted it to be inclusive, and maybe more and more people will be able to feel that they can come, because I'm really interested in the unity born of humanity.
Definitely.
I don't care what a person's political party is. I don't care what their sexual orientation is. And the same thing for my wife and I, because we run the frequency band together, which is a whole other thing that started in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
There's recordings out with the frequency band, and we never charged a cent for it.
Great.
In all those years.
Mm-hmm.
We had people playing, and all these things are just not for students. They're for everyone who wants to play and wants to learn more. We have, different professionals, as you saw last night, showing up. And maybe one of the things I think that looking in the sky very young and all this stuff has led me to really want to tune to truth, and knowing that each person is different. And therefore, if in any way I can feel honorable in myself, any way I can help someone find them.
Yes.
I'm not trying to pass me along.
Right.
It's about, this got into me, and what does it do to you?
Right.
Or maybe what do you need? What lights you up?
Yeah.
What are you connected to? And that's very important. So I feel I can be an assistant in aiding, because we always do something new, wouldn't you say?
Yes, always.
Yeah. How often do people do something consciously new every day? Consciously new.
I'm tempted to say not often.
Right.
Yeah.
Not often at all.
Yeah.
And being able to do that, of course, opens up the world for you, especially building relationships with nature.
Right.
Instead of getting all nervous, go out and play for a bunch of sheeps and, sheep.
The trees.
The trees.
Play for the trees.
Yeah, exactly. I play for nature all the time in all of its forms. And sometimes it's much easier than playing for humans.
Yes.
It's just sad.
It's sad.
We can be on a mission to change that and open things up a little bit.
Definitely.
So people know how to get in touch with me. And
definitely. Well, Mr. Bolter, as we approach
I see.
9 o'clock, I do have a way to wrap things up in an exciting crescendo of events. So just like the most exciting pieces of music ending in a big crescendo, I have rapid fire questions that I would like to ask you. And it's six or seven of them. So as quickly as you can answer them. Anyway, I'll just do it. What's the weirdest thing you have in your house?
The weirdest? I don't know. Maybe there's so many weird things, or not enough weird things. I don't know. A rabbit and a parrot.
A rabbit and a parrot. Okay, I like it. If you could be any animal, what would it be?
Maybe a dolphin.
A dolphin. Yeah, they're very smart. Yeah.
All animals are incredibly smart, actually. Yeah.
Okay, here's a deep one. If you could know the answer to just one question, what would you ask?
am I getting closer to what I want for the meaning of life to actually be? Now, am I getting closer to truth?
Yes. Beautiful. What is your favorite book or author?
The author would be interesting to say. I have a few, but if I had to pick one, it would be the Bhagavad Gita.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's awesome. Yeah. What are you currently learning?
That science is also a living thing. And that's a big topic.
Yes.
Especially these days.
Yeah.
Science is a living thing, and science is synonymous with capital T, truth. And how important that is. When you want to tune yourself to truth, it is a journey and not always easy.
Yes.
Truth is not opinion.
Yep. I agree with that.
And that's one of the biggest journeys in my life. But science is everywhere because it's truth.
Yep. And the last one, the first word that comes to mind when I say the word gravity.
Point of focus.
Point of focus. Now that's 3 words, but we'll hyphenate it for you, okay?
Oh, you said one word?
No, that's okay.
Word? You said one word.
One word.
That's 3 words? I said, you know what's amazing about 3?
What's amazing about it?
1 is 3 and 3 is 1, and evermore shall be so. And you look it up in so many different scriptures, right?
Christianity, yeah, all of that. Mm-hmm.
All of that. 1 is 3 and 3 is 1.
Yep. Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Bolter.
Of course.
I really appreciate this. I mean, I got a lot out of this. I have so many more questions that we didn't get to, but that is okay. I think we got a lot out of this, and I hope everybody else did as well. And have a great weekend, Mr. Bolter. And this has been another Tone Dome episode. hang on the chat, and I'm just gonna end the live stream, and then I'll say goodbye to you. Okay, bye everybody.